on the bench with literally a barn find, that's what I call it, PowerDriver board. And this thing was a disaster. It had been sitting in a stack of boards a long time. I'll never, well, hardly ever, this is the first time maybe, replace all 5 of these 15,000 microfarad caps. But all 5 of these were a total disaster. I wouldn't trust them anymore, so I replaced them. The fuses in this thing, it looked as if somebody had gotten a fuse kit and just stuffed them in anywhere without regard to what was supposed to be there. So I replaced a bunch of fuses. I was able to mix and match quite a few of them. Like maybe there was a 7 amp slow blow down here and it belonged up here, so I've done that. At one point in time, J124 had the wires soldered directly to it. That was a flash lamp wire. And so I had to replace that header because you couldn't even get the connector on there anymore because there was a big glob of solder on it. I replaced the general illumination input and output headers, the 5-volt power out, the unregulated 12-volt power in, and all these power ins, and the top one's a ground connector. So we are good to go there. This transistor with the white stripe was shorted, and the 68 ohm and the 470 ohm, that's the blue one, and there's a 2.7K ohm one in there also. Somebody had tried to solder half-watt resistors to the cutoff legs of the old resistors, and that's kind of a valid repair. I don't like it. I removed those 3 resistors and replaced them, replaced the 2N5401 pre-driver and the tip 102. And by the time I'd gotten to test this for the first time on the bench, I noticed that the right leg of this transistor wasn't making with ground, so I had to add a jumper to the back of the board to connect it to ground for the next lower transistor down. R30 here was clipped, and I can only assume somebody clipped it because they wanted to disable Q24, a flash lamp transistor, because it was locked on, I guess, when I first tested the board. I'm not sure that's adding up, but it is what it is at this time. So we are testing the first 16 transistor drives, and I'll let this go through and make sure I've got all these working correctly now. I guess the bottom line on this board is it was such a disaster that this is the first time in all my board repair history that I think I'm going to have to charge for the extra time required to get this crazy thing going. There was so much hacked and wrong with this board. Testing the GI dimming features for all 5 of the triacs, and they're working just fine. Let's test lamps and flashers at the same time. Fortunately, the lamp matrix is operational, and what is this? Solenoid 25, Q26. You've got to be kidding me. This next one down is inoperative? Give me a break. This is the 4th time back to my workbench with this board. Oh well, one more time. So I think I found the problem here. I don't know what somebody was doing to this board. I don't know if you can see it, but R34 here is clipped also. You can see I can move it. So it's not making with the solder pad, which on my logic probe, I don't know if you can see or hear, that's pulsing. So the signal is getting to where the resistor leg should be connected, yet the resistor leg is not connected. Now let me see if I can bridge this resistor leg. And let me get a screwdriver. You gotta be careful with this. So I've got that resistor leg bridged and the circuit is working. So I'm going to remove that resistor and put a brand new one in there, even though I could glob some solder across there. That's just not the right way to repair that. R34 was the resistor that was clipped. So you could see that would prevent the signal coming from the LS374 at U2 to this resistor, and then subsequently through the cascading of the 2N5401 to the tip 102. So we're back on the bench now, and I'm going to get into test again for I don't know how many times I've done this with this board. Sometimes this becomes quite frustrating, and and the frustration is that none of this was necessary. If somebody would have just taken their time and done this right the first time, I wouldn't be frustrated at this point in time. So I'm going to stick a pin in this board here and hope that the individual who did all this feels a little twinge in the back of his neck. Okay, so we have tested collectively then all the functions of this board. So this is the flash lamp circuit that was previously in op. So finally, this thing's good to go, and I am going to go to lunch.